Everyone, and welcome to this very important webinar on carbon monoxide safety while traveling, brought to you from our amazing partner, Kidde. We're going to talk about carbon monoxide and when to be concerned about it. And that is, it can happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time. And so it's really important to be prepared for it when it does present itself. Next slide. We're going to be talking today with Matt Heizman and Chuck Heathco. Next slide, please. And Matt is with Kidde, and he is going to talk to us today about protection equipment. What equipment can you use to protect yourself and your family from carbon monoxide safety, not only while traveling, but in your home or in your workplace? And then we're also going to hear from Chuck Heathco today. He's the founder of the John Wesley Heathco Legacy Foundation and an NCOA board member. Chuck is going to talk to us about his particular perspective on carbon monoxide safety as it relates to the passing of his son John, and what that has meant to him, his family, and his community, and what they're doing as turning that tragedy into something that will help other communities and other families. So with that, I'd like to introduce Matt Heizman.
Okay, we can start on my first slide, but first I want to let's start with the basics. So carbon monoxide, also referred to as CO, is an invisible, odorless, and tasteless gas. It can be extremely dangerous when inhaled. It's produced when fuels such as gas, wood, coal, or oil don't burn completely, often the result of poor ventilation or malfunctioning appliances, such as furnaces, water heaters, stoves, fireplaces, grills, and portable generators. Because carbon monoxide cannot be detected by human senses, it can build up indoors without warning. When inhaled, CO prevents the body from getting the oxygen it needs, which leads to serious illness or even death. CO is the leading cause of poisoning deaths in the US, according to the Center of Disease Control. It's nearly impossible to detect CO without an alarm. And the risk of CO poisoning is not specific to just indoors. It can happen outside as well. Fuel burning appliances such as cars, lawn mowers, and power washers can produce CO. And while being in open air like outdoors generally reduces the risk compared to indoor settings, dangerous concentrations can still be reached, leading to CO poisoning if you're close enough to the device or if the device is positioned next to the window. Next, we'll talk about the differences between CO and CO2. So carbon monoxide, CO, and carbon dioxide, CO2, are commonly confused. Not only do they sound similar, but they both are odorless and colorless gases. Both are byproducts of combustion, and both are dangerous in high concentrations. CO poisoning is common around the world, whereas fatalities from CO2 are rare. The main difference is that carbon monoxide is a toxic, odorless gas from incomplete combustion, while carbon dioxide is a less immediate harmful gas from complete combustion and natural processes. CO is deadly because it prevents blood from carrying oxygen, whereas CO2 is primary risk at high concentrations where it displaces oxygen. On the slide, you can see some common household sources that could pose a risk for CO, such as wood, gas fireplaces, furnaces, gas stoves, appliances, and vehicles. Whereas carbon dioxide is a result of human and animal respiration, ocean outgases, agriculture, and livestock. Next, we'll look at some truths about travel and CO. So carbon monoxide safety, while sometimes is top of mind as a potential threat inside the home, also poses a risk for travelers. In fact, statistics around travel and CO are alarming. As you can see some of these stats on the slide here. In the United States, only 14 states currently require the installation of carbon monoxide detectors in hotels and motels, which leaves many travelers vulnerable. Also, the number of carbon monoxide poisoning incidents are also alarming. CO poisonings are increasing here in the US. They are responsible for over 100,000 emergency room visits, 14,000 hospitalizations, and over 400 deaths each year. And within the past 2 decades, firefighters have responded to more than 4,000 CO incidents in hotels, motels, and resorts. I also want to put out that these numbers are estimates, and the actual number of CO poisoning cases are likely understated and underreported due to false diagnosis and people not realizing that it is CO poisoning when people go to the emergency room or incidents happen. So next, we'll talk a little bit about Kidde's destination safety. So in the absence of consistent regulations across travel accommodations, and because carbon monoxide poisoning incidences have been on the rise, and they are being brought to light by far too many headlines, like the one from CNN here on the slide. It's essential for individuals to take proactive measures, such as packing a battery-powered CO alarm when traveling to help detect carbon monoxide regardless of where they stay. We recommend a AA battery-operated alarm for all your travels, especially if you're heading overseas to avoid restrictions with foreign electrical outlets. Earlier this year, Kidde launched Destination Safety, an education-first initiative designed to empower travelers to better protect themselves from the threat of carbon monoxide poisoning. This program is our commitment to educating the public and helping reduce the risk of CO and fire-related incidences during travel. As part of the program, travelers can access the travel safety checklist to help protect themselves and their family as they prepare for their upcoming trips. You'll see the checklist later on in the webinar with a QR code to access. When traveling, there's many considerations. There's a lot of preparation. There's a lot of planning on flights and hotels and activities. CO safety is normally not top of mind, but it should be. And that's what destination safety is all about, driving education among travelers about the potential threat of CO while away from the home and equipping them with the resources to help protect themselves from the threat of carbon monoxide poisoning. We can go, yeah. Sharon, are you still here?
I'm so sorry. And thank you so much, Matt, for that amazing information about how to keep our families safe, and especially while traveling. I really liked the advice to use a battery operated CO alarm while you're traveling. Most of us wouldn't think about that, but yeah, really great advice. So thank you for that. And I'd like to introduce Chuck Heathco now. Chuck is going to tell us about how carbon monoxide impacted his family and what his family and friends are doing to help promote CO safety now. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Sharon, very much. I appreciate it. And Matt, thank you for that briefing on what carbon monoxide is all about. I know I speak for my son when I say I wish I would have known a lot of this before what happened to our family occurred. Anyway, I want to thank you for having me and welcome everybody that's listening to anyone, anywhere, anytime, CO safety while traveling. And it just hits me. One of the things my son enjoyed most was traveling. And so what happened to him we're hoping that telling Johnny's story, the story I'm about to tell you, will move people to do what Matt suggested in carrying these alarms wherever you go. Let me start off by saying I've been married 50 years to a beautiful wife named Jill. We have 2 children, Carrie, our daughter, married to my other son, Tyler, and my son, Johnny. They have 3 kids, 3 grandkids I have with Carrie and Tyler. Johnny's in heaven right now looking down on us, and we're going to tell a story right now about what happened to him and Abby Lutz, his girlfriend, when they went on vacation back in June of 2023. It's an impactful, emotional story, so bear with me. I've told it a few times, but it always gets to me a little bit when I tell all the details. But anyway, a little bit about Johnny. He was a special kid. Words often fail me when I try to talk about him. He was kind, compassionate, brilliant. He had an enormous heart. 40 years old when he was taken from us, and he did more in his 40 years than most people do in a lifetime. He's traveled on almost all the continents around the world, met thousands of people. He loved talking to people, meeting people. He was a listener. That's what made him special. He had friendships, but they were deep friendships because whenever Johnny was talking with anybody, he was listening to what they had to say and oftentimes was able to help them out. My son was brilliant. As I said, we had a good relationship. I spent 20 years being his father and the next 20 years becoming a better person just by knowing him. He's going to be so missed, has been already. It's been quite a journey. This happened on June 13th of 2023. And I'm going to share with you the details because they cover just about every way that carbon monoxide can affect someone and what people could be doing along the way to save people that are injured. They left for Cabo San Lucas, Mexico in mid-June because the weather was bad. He and Abby decided to go down to take a couple days and just lie in the sun and feel good. It was a 5-star resort that they went to in Mexico. Beautiful suite. Johnny sent me a video of what it looked like when he got there. About 2.5 hours after they arrived, Johnny and Abby both got violently ill with headaches, nausea, vomiting, etc. And it just progressively got worse over the hours that they were there. So finally, Johnny called and said he was going to go to the emergency room there in town, a small clinic. When he arrived, he thought he had food poisoning. So he had told the doctor that. And so they spent several hours at the emergency room clinic. I believe both Abby and Johnny received IV treatments, etc. And because they were out of their suite, they were feeling better. So Johnny called and asked for an extra night. And excuse me 1 second. I'm so sorry. The power came off in the building for a second, so I redid it. But anyway, they got to the clinic and they got the extra night. And then my family and I were just going crazy, wondering what was going on. We lost contact with them. I called the airlines, etc. And we didn't hear anything until my daughter called the consulate in Mexico that night and was informed that Chuck Heathco and Abby Lutz were found dead in their room at this 5-star resort. After doing a lot of investigating over the next several months, we found out a lot of interesting things that had occurred 6 months prior to my son staying in this suite. There were many complaints by staff and people staying at the resort about feeling sick, and nothing was done about it. The real kicker was 1 week before my son and Abby were in that room, room 201, we like to call it. Another couple was in the same room. The only thing that saved their lives was their friends came to get him to go to dinner and found him unconscious in their room. And they rushed them to the hospital where they were told they had heat stroke. We've been in contact with them, and they're convinced that they are both damaged from carbon monoxide exposure. In addition to that, the two paramedics that went into my son's room, when they found him dead, they went in to retrieve the bodies. They were warned to get out of the room immediately. Once they walked in, you could actually feel the carbon monoxide. You can't smell it or taste it, but you could feel it. It was so thick in there. Both those young kids, they were the children of the man that owned the ambulance down in Mexico. These were his two kids, and both of them are now, they've started GoFundMe pages to try to get the money they're going to need for treatment that they're going to require over the next several years, because once you've been damaged by carbon monoxide, it doesn't get better. So my family, we looked and tried to figure out what we were going to do, and for my wife and I, it was simple. In the twilight of our lives, we're going to dedicate our lives to ending carbon monoxide tragedies. When we found out how often this happens to people, and when we found out what can happen even if you're exposed and not killed by it, it's just awful. And we started a foundation to try to end these carbon monoxide tragedies called the John Wesley Heathco Foundation. Our core pillars, what we're focusing on, education, awareness, especially for travelers, so that something like what happened to Johnny and Abby doesn't happen to anybody else. A big part of it is learning about carbon monoxide and taking those alarms with you wherever you go. We're also looking at advancement in innovative technology. We hope to be unveiling a new water bottle that's going to have a carbon monoxide detector in the lid of the water bottle. We hope to be looking into that a little bit more. In fact, my wife and I are going up to Cal Poly, where my son went to school, to look at the prototype this week. And the final pillar that we have is advocacy, engaging with policymakers and regulators. And a little bit of good news came earlier this week that we now have a Republican congresswoman on the bill now. There's been a bill that's been introduced, the Safe Stay Act, for the third time, and this is the first time there's going to be a Republican on board. So we're hoping that we can get a law passed. It's a federal law. Only 14 states now require these alarms in rooms where people sleep. We're hoping that this Safe Stay Act can be passed, and we can get all 50 states mandated that all hotels, VRBOs, and lodging facilities have CO alarms in every room. I don't know what else really to say other than it's such an emotional ride that my family's on right now, and we just want to prevent this from ever happening to any other family. It's been so hard on us, but we find joy in knowing that we're going to save lives by doing this, because I think Johnny, looking down on us from heaven right now, is telling Jill and I and our family to try and stop these needless deaths and tragedies from occurring around the world. Thank you for listening. Oh, and please stop by visit our website, and you can see in a little bit more detail what we're up to. And again, my apologies for being so emotional during this, but it's a tough time. Thank you.
Chuck, thank you so much for sharing that really painful story with us. It helps to illustrate why carbon monoxide awareness really matters. Well, let's talk now about what we can do, what everyone can do to protect themselves, not only at home, but while they're traveling. Matt is going to provide us some travel and safety tips.
Yeah, and thank you. And Chuck, thanks for sharing the story. I know it's the second time I've heard the story too, and it's one of those that's always, for me too, makes me emotional as a dad too. And just thanks for doing what you're doing and sharing the story.
Thank you.
As I mentioned earlier, so stories like Chuck's was what inspired us to launch Kidde's Destination Safety. It was really introduced to do everything we can to help avoid these unthinkable circumstances that could occur while traveling. Travelers can access this toolkit. It's a safety checklist. There's the QR code here on this slide. We'll also share it later. It's also available on kidde.com. And I encourage everyone to log in, look at it, and download it. And once again, we'll share it later too, so all the listeners can have direct access to it. But with this, additionally, really my top CO safety tips as a whole starts at the home. And that's really make sure you test all your devices at your house, your smoke, your CO alarm. There is a push to test button on each one of them that you should be testing regularly, just to make sure that they remain properly working, power still flowing properly to them. The batteries aren't dead if it's a battery powered one. But even before traveling, make sure you go and test all of your at-home devices just to make sure your home is properly protected while you're away. The second one is really pack that AA battery operated CO alarm to use at your travel destination. You never 100% know what devices are at where you're traveling, whether it's a hotel, house you're renting, any of those. So having something with you that you know is working, you know is properly protection is really the best way to really ensure that you have something that can sense CO. Also, when you arrive at your destination, first test the device you brought just to make sure it didn't get damaged while traveling, but also check to make sure that they have smoke alarms, they have CO alarms are present. If it is a house that you're renting, you can push the test button on them as well, just to make sure that they are still properly working. Just because they're in the ceiling doesn't mean they're always active. So especially if it's not your house, make sure you're testing these devices just to make sure that everything is up and running. Next, I want to spend a little bit of time to talk about what do CO alarms do and how do we maintain them. So another key element of prevention is having the right devices and properly maintaining them. First, CO alarms do not serve as smoke alarms and vice versa. So CO alarms can alert people to poisonous levels of CO. Standard smoke alarms by themselves do not. There are some smoke alarms that have combination smoke and carbon monoxide, some that do not. So you want to check to make sure that you have both smoke and carbon monoxide protection. A good rule of thumb is each floor of your house needs a separate CO alarm, including your basement. And CO alarms should be placed inside of every bedroom. When it comes to traveling, if you bring that CO alarm with you, don't put it in a dead air space or next to a window or right next to the air conditioning unit, as the airflow can make it not be able to read the CO. Also, when you arrive at your destination, make sure you put the batteries back in your device. Like I said earlier, make sure you test the CO alarm to ensure it's functioning properly. Test the existing smoke and CO alarms in the rental properties if you're staying at. And just do an audit check to make sure that they have on-site smoke and CO alarms. It's also important to keep in mind that CO alarms do not last forever. You should replace them every 5 to 10 years, depending on what model you have. As the final topic that I want to talk through is really recognizing some of the symptoms of CO poisoning. So as we learned from Chuck's story, it's far too easy for symptoms of CO to be mistaken for something else. It's not top of mind for many people, including medical professionals. So CO poisoning enters the body through breathing and can easily be confused with flu symptoms, food poisoning, heat stroke, or other illnesses. Some symptoms include shortness of breath, dizziness, nausea, lightheadedness, and headaches. High levels of CO can be fatal, causing death within minutes. Most CO-related deaths occur during the colder months of the year, with more than half of the deaths occurring during the 4 cold months, November, December, January, and February. This makes it even more relevant to prioritize CO safety at home and while traveling during the busy holiday season. With that, I think we're moving to the Q&A.
Thanks so much, Matt. Really,
Sharon,
really,
Sharon, may I
yes,
say
sir.
something real quick? Let me say something real quick in response to what Matt said. One of the things this hotel did when they knew that they were having issues, I'm not even sure they knew it was carbon monoxide. They just heard these alarms beating. This hotel had alarms in every room. They took the time to turn the alarms off because they were beeping. I mean, I don't know how people can even imagine how a hotel with a carbon monoxide alarm that's beeping just shuts the alarm off and doesn't do anything else about it. So what, as Matt was talking about, bringing an alarm with you, be sure, even if the hotel tells you that they have alarms, bring your own with you anyway, because the absolute worst can happen is what happened with Johnny and Abby, and that is the hotel, instead of investigating as to why the alarms were beeping, they just shut them off.
It's so tragic. You know, the problem is that only 14 states require CO alarms in hotels, right? And so how much training do staff personnel at the hotels receive about carbon monoxide safety, right?
Exactly.
So there's so much work to be done. In the meantime, while we're trying to get laws passed to require CO alarms in hotels, while we're educating the public, in the meantime, let's all carry CO alarms with us when we travel. And I want to just say that it's not enough to just call the hotel to find out if they have alarms, because again, the staff hasn't been trained. When I travel, I commonly ask if there's CO alarms in the hotel that I'm staying, and I get answers like, what do you mean? What kind of alarms?" And oh, yeah, for sure, we have alarms. But then when you check with the maintenance staff, they'll tell you, no, actually, we don't. So it's really difficult to get clarity from the hotel that you're staying at if CO alarms are present. So in the meantime, while we're trying to, take care of some of these inconsistencies across the country, please bring your own. And I would want to just add that it's not just hotels, right? We vacation in RVs, we vacation on houseboats, we vacation in cabins. And so it's really important wherever you're traveling, take an alarm with you. So Kidde has these really nice little travel cases. I downloaded your travel checklist. So thank you for that. Um, well, let's go ahead and answer a few questions that have come in. Matt, this question is for you. You talked a little bit about the signs and symptoms, but could you talk a little bit more on this, and how how could someone distinguish carbon monoxide poisoning from, as Chuck mentioned, say food poisoning or heat stroke?
I would say one is not easy. CO poisoning really can easily be confused with all of these flu, food poisoning, other illnesses. Really, it's a few things to look out for. Is one, if this is something new that came on suddenly, especially as you got to a new place or a new location, such as you get shortness of breath, dizziness, you're starting to feel really tired and lightheaded, you got sudden headaches inside certain rooms or in certain areas, then take those serious. If also it's one of those, if you see that you're feeling these symptoms, but when you move to different locations, they go away, it's most likely CO. But really, the only way to know for sure is to have a detector, because it's odorless, because you can't see it. it's really, really hard to tell what exists in the air. And these can easily be confused with other symptoms all the time.
Thanks for that. You know, carbon monoxide is very difficult to detect, but it's also super difficult to diagnose. As Chuck mentioned, the previous the previous couple that stayed in 201 wasn't diagnosed correctly. Abby and John weren't diagnosed correctly. I myself had CO poisoning for a number of years from carbon monoxide leaks in my home, and I was misdiagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. And I just want to say that if you do suspect CO poisoning, it's really important to get to your doctor and ask for a specific blood test, because that blood test has to be done within 4 hours to show the poisoning.
That's a good point, Sharon. And I was thinking about that with Johnny. It's critical that you get to the hospital shortly after. You can imagine somebody, for example, working in an office building, being exposed to some low level of carbon monoxide over 8 hours, and they get a headache. If they don't go to the ER within 4 hours, they're never going to know what was causing that headache. So they could be going on for years, similar to your situation, with exposure. And even if you knew to ask for a CO test after 4 hours, it wouldn't do any good. So it all points to always having an alarm with you whenever you travel. I would say in your office, if you're working, you should have a carbon monoxide alarm in your office. Not just traveling, but in your office. I can't imagine how many people working in big office buildings are right now today being exposed to carbon monoxide and have no idea that it's happening to them.
When you put it in terms like that, Chuck, it's pretty scary. And you know, what we're talking about today is really important. We have a comment here from Eileen Pettinger, our friend at the Michigan Bureau of Fire Safety. She says, "Thank you, Chuck, for sharing your impactful story. What a great tribute to your son by fighting for legislation that changes, and also the water bottle concept." Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. I'm hoping that this water bottle idea goes somewhere, because it's something that, especially for young people, you see them all the time. And I know when I went down to check in Mexico, I had to go down and take care of all the stuff with Johnny's passing. And I stayed at a hotel. I went down with a friend of mine. We stayed in a hotel. And it was probably a month after that I remembered that I forgot my alarm when I went down there. It's, I think most people, even if you know that you need to take an alarm, sometimes you forget it. That's why I think this water bottle idea might be kind of good, because you take your water bottle and it'll have the carbon monoxide monitor right there. So I'm hoping it works. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, and even with when we think through the common sources of carbon monoxide, and we think through inside a house or inside a hotel, is kind of what we talked about today. But if you think through, any of the gas-powered generators are things that do have CO come out of them. So when you think through any of those other things that might be outside even that use them, there's chance of CO poisoning. Things like food trucks or those travel party trucks and things like that use those portable gas-powered generators also have chance of CO, whether you're outside or not, if you're in the cloud.
Yeah, we've something that the people might want to hear is that since we started our foundation, I'm certain that we've saved lives, but one in particular, and this will be something that people can take with them, and that is that a friend of Johnny's, a real good friend of Johnny's, mentioned to a friend of his who traveled a lot, that you ought to get a CO alarm and take it with you, especially when you go up to your family. I think they had a place up in Idaho or something. I can't remember what it was, all the details, but a very, very good friend, and his story is on our website. He went out and bought an alarm, took his wife and 2 kids, and they went to, whether it was their own place or an Airbnb, they put the alarm there. And it was the first time they'd ever used one, turned it on. They went to bed about 2 a.m. The alarm went off. They vacated present the location, called the fire department, and the fire department came out, cleared the place where they were staying, and talked to him and told him that he and his family would more than likely be gone if they did not have that alarm. So we're getting the word out, Matt, and that's what's important. My wife, my family's dedicated. This is what we're going to do the rest of our lives, is to see if we can't eliminate these injuries. And I just thought I'd share that. It's a good, positive story that we got out of it so far.
Thank you, Chuck. Appreciate that. We have a ton of great questions. So just moving right along, we have a question from our friend Rod Amon. Rod, if you don't know him, he runs Stonehouse Media, and he put together our wonderful firefighter training program that's available on ncoaa.us. Rod asks a really great question. Can Matt give specific information about how to deal with carrying a CO detector on a flight? Should you take the batteries out? Should you put it in a Ziploc bag? Are there issues with TSA?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first one is, that's part of why we recommend the AA battery device. Flights have some restrictions on lithium batteries, which would be the 10-year one. So use a AA device. We recommend taking the batteries out of the device and putting them in a Ziploc bag next to it. We also would recommend that you pack the device securely in a bag. It is an electronic device, so if it's loose in a bag going through airport security and it's getting bounced around really heavily in the bag, there's always a chance it could not work properly on the other end. So we recommend taking the batteries out, packing it securely. There won't be any issues with TSA with these alarms. They'll be able to go through airport security just fine. And then once you do get to your destination, make sure you remember to put the batteries back in it so it's turned on and functional. And then, like I said, push the test button just to make sure that it's still functional and nothing got damaged during your travels.
Thanks, Matt. And I just want to add, maybe write your name in permanent ink on the front of the detector. I've had friends that take these detectors to hotels, and the maids get confused and they think they belong to the hotel, so they pick them up. So just a quick tip. Matt, can you tell us at what level does the CO detector reference alert to the presence of CO?
So it goes at dangerous levels, which I believe is 32 is the level. I'll have to double check that and we can get back to everyone on it. But really, all detectors are set at when it gets to a dangerous level, they will go off.
And then I have a anonymous comment here. What would make a great Christmas gift? A CO detector. So thanks for that.
Definitely.
Okay, so Gordon Samuel also has a comment, sending love to Chuck and Jill. Congratulations on the website, doing Johnny and Abby's memory an honor. And he also recommends that as we're entering the heating season, and some families have financial issues, especially this year, and people are trying to stay warm. Never, ever, ever heat your home with the oven or be tempted to bring your barbecue grill inside during inclement weather, even in the garage, even with the garage door open. Just resist that urge.
Yeah, and one build to that would be things with like propane heaters as well. Just be careful with it. These will help protect. We have some that detect propane and things like that as well. That's also a dangerous gas in the house. But also gas-powered generators. If you do have a bad snowstorm and your house loses power and you have a gas-powered generator, do not have them in your garage running. They will leak CO, and even with your garage, it can get in your house.
Thank you for that. Carrie agreed that you should write your name on the alarms because she says that she was in her hotel room when she came back after it was clean, it was gone. The maids thought that it was part of the engineering team. So thanks for that. Um, Here's a question about where detectors should be installed, and I think you may have answered it, up high or down low. But we believe that CO disperses evenly with the air, so just keep it away from corners.
Mm.
6 inches, is that right, Matt?
Yeah, it needs to be 6 inches from the corners. You want it to be away from right next to HVAC systems and where the vents are so the air can flow to them. You really want it in a place that the air won't block it away. You want to keep it away from windows as well, especially if they're open, just because the airflow could push the CO away from it. But CO expands, it doesn't just rise or lower. So on the ceiling or at the plug level are both good locations for it.
Great. And Ron Garmany asked the same question. A lot of people hear that carbon monoxide is heavier, and it's really not. It's really about the same molecular weight as air. So thanks for your questions. Um, This question is from Daryl Engel at Intertech. If you buy a CO alarm from an online source, be sure to confirm it has an ETL or UL mark of safety on it. Without one of these marks, you have no idea if the alarm will work as intended. I have lots to say about this, Matt.
Yes.
Well, the Consumer Product Safety Commission is in a legal suit with Amazon today over whether or not Amazon has the responsibility to ensure that products work as intended, and specifically as it relates to CO alarms. You can find any number of CO alarms on Amazon. The problem with CO alarms specifically is how would you know that it's working? You can buy a flashlight. When you turn it on, you know it's working. A a toaster oven, a curling iron, any of these, you can tell whether or not it's working as intended, but a carbon monoxide alarm, unless it's been tested and it has a certification by ETL or UL, you have no way of knowing.
Yeah, and kind of my response to that is there's two testing bodies that certify products here in the US. UL sets the standards and sets the guidelines for how devices should perform, what testing they should go under to ensure they work. And then UL and both a company called ETL, which is Intertech Laboratories, do testing on these devices. So my advice to that is any device you get, whether it's a carbon monoxide device or a smoke detector, they must be certified by either UL or ETL. If they have the certification mark on the product, it means it went through all of the regulatory testing and they have been deemed to be safe and effective devices. So as you're shopping anywhere that you shop, that's what I would look for, is to make sure that it has those marks on it. If it's unclear or you can't find it anywhere on the device or you can't necessarily find the listings on it, you can also go to the UL or ETL website and you can look up the brand or the model number and it'll tell you if it's listed or not.
Fantastic. We have so many great questions. I really don't think we're going to be able to
Yeah.
get through all of these.
And Sharon, just to kind of go back to an earlier question, just to make sure I have an accurate answer for everyone. So with the levels in which the CO devices alarm, so it's at 70 ppm is where they alarm. That's the level of CO in the air is when they alarm. That's determined to be the dangerous level. The 31 I said earlier, that's at a low level. That's when it's like you start having something that's not just a blip. So 30 is a low level, not considered dangerous. The 70 is the level in which the alarms go off.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate that. And we have a number of questions about, alarming levels. And, the alarm threshold standards have been in place and agreed upon by a consensus of people. And since that um, standard has been put in place, there has been a lot of research that talks about levels that impact humans. And it come to find out that everyone's just a little bit different. Um, Infants and unborn are the most vulnerable, followed by, older children, and then elderly adults who have underlying conditions. And the research has shown us that very low levels of carbon monoxide will affect uh, fetuses, levels as low as 1 or 2 parts per million. So we are working really hard to change the standards in which these levels, which the alarms alert. But until we're able to do that, these CO alarms are life safety. So please, please, please utilize them. If you have young children, if you are expecting, if you have an underlying condition, think about a monitor with a very low level alert. They can be found on the NCO website. They're much more expensive. So just do your homework and figure out what's right for you and your family.
Sharon, I think it might be a good time maybe to mention something about what CO Research Trust is doing over in England. I don't know if people realize that the only way you can tell if you've been exposed to carbon monoxide is to have a blood test, which is very limiting when you think 4 hours later the blood test is ineffective. So if you've got a pregnant woman who is working in an office that's filled with smoke that the staff smokes, and they're being exposed to levels that are dangerous, how are they going to know? And I think hopefully this next year, Sharon and I have been talking about this a lot, that there is research that's ongoing now that's going to be able to determine exposure to carbon monoxide with a test other than a blood test. It would be a biomarker, a cellular biomarker test. So I think we're all hoping that that takes place. But yeah, that's the danger with these blood tests, is that the half-life of carbon monoxide is so small that if you don't get to the ER and ask for the test, most ERs, I spoke with the ER doctor in in Newport Beach here. He'd been at Hoag Hospital for 12 years. He'd done one test in 12 years for carbon monoxide. And that was on a gentleman whose history was that he brought a hibachi into the living room to cook a hamburger. And his friend found him on the floor and took him to the hospital. That's the only blood test he did for carbon monoxide in 12 years. So I think we can all hope that there is research pending that will allow another form of diagnosis be a cellular biomarker versus just a blood test.
Awesome. I just want to mention Jeremy Adler asked if the research about the impact on fetuses are publicly available. Yes, they are. And we could ask our friends at Kidde to put that link in with the notes that are sent out afterwards. And if we don't get to any of these questions, we can try and answer them and send them out as well. And I just want to give a quick shout out to Bonnie McAfee. She says, "Hi, I'm Chuck's sister and always carry my CO alarm with me. Never any problems through TSA. Please carry one always." And then we have a question here about CO laws and as they're rated, as they can relate to this travel bill. And what they can do to help get this law passed. Matt, John, Chuck?
I think what did we say, 14 states have current laws, but they're all different. All the states are different.
Yeah.
And in the 36 states that don't have laws, they probably have smaller laws through the fire departments, etc. But what we're hoping for is a federal law which would mandate all 50 states, every hotel, VRBO, motel, etc., anywhere where you put your head down at night, there's a carbon monoxide alarm in that room. I'm not sure if that answered the question, but Matt, maybe you can.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, when it comes down to laws and regulations, it really is our collective voices is what carry weight overall. We all just need to do our part. Those of us that can, write your congressperson, the House of Representatives, state legislators, and kind of ask them what their stance is on these. And really, with any law or any regulations, it's really about getting our voices heard and heard collectively, and that's how you can move the needle.
You know what I think, adding to that, Matt, that the question that was brought up, or that when we talked about pregnant women and how the fetus is so susceptible to very, very low levels, you wonder why in the past Congress has been reluctant to pass a law. Well, I think if somehow it gets out there that pregnant women are very, very susceptible with the fetus to severe injuries and deaths, and I think that that may help move the needle. So we're hoping that along with people calling in, also this research being done on the fetus and the mother will maybe push the needle forward far enough that we can get more and more congressmen to come on board this bill.
That's great. And on the NCOA website under resources, we have a landing page to help people support the Safe Stay Act. There's a list where you can select where you live and find your representative, and an email template that you can use to write your representative an email to ask them to support the Safe Stay Act. Okay, one last question, Matt. So carbon dioxide poisonings, are they more prevalent at certain times of the year?
Yes, they are. They happen more often in winter, especially the coldest months of the year, for numerous reasons in there. One of which is people are more inside; they're more likely to have all their windows closed. But also, a lot of the devices we use in the winter, especially around heating, gas-powered fireplaces, generators, all those are just more likely to have CO part of the devices. Also, you get winter storms and hurricanes and things like that that just are just makes it more likely that you're in a situation or you're using devices that have CO as part of it.
Perfect. And then we have time for just a couple more questions. This one is on assisted living facilities, Matt. And Julia is asking if there's a way to be notified if the alarm goes off so a loved one can follow up with the assisted living facility, especially if it's been turned off.
There absolutely is. So here at Kidde, we have a smart CO alarm that has CO monitoring as well as IAQ sensing that can be linked directly with the Kidde app, and it will notify you remotely if there is a CO incident with it. So that's one that you could use with anything that if you want to get alerts while you're not at the certain location, like the smart devices are the easiest way to do that.
Awesome. A listener asks if there's a list of the 14 states that have the law in place.
Yes,
There is.
yeah,
Go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Chuck.
Yeah, Sharon, I think you have it on your website too. Our website does list the 14 states that currently have laws. Here in California, they have very good laws, and several other states are, and they're actually rated in terms of the extent of the law in these 14 states, how far they go.
And Kidde.com as well, we have an interactive map of the US that looks at the codes state by state of what codes are everywhere across the country.
Perfect. And then we have a question about CO awareness and education. Are there preferred methods to share this information? And this is a great question considering November is CO Awareness Month. NCOAA worked with a number of our partners to pull together a CO safety toolkit for the month. And this information is being shared with, people all over the country. The information, if you go to our website, right on the front page, you'll see a CO Awareness Month. If you click on that, you'll see a whole toolkit with emails and press releases, social media posts that you can put your personal or business logo on the messaging and send it out to either your members or your family and friends during CO Awareness Month.
And
Lots of information on the John Wesley Heathco Legacy Foundation and also Kidde.
What I'm hoping, Sharon, is if we can get the Safe Stay Act passed, I think that'll be the first domino that will spread wildly throughout school districts, etc. In terms of now that we know how it'll put before the public how important this is, because it's kind of been a quiet issue for years. I think if we can get this law passed, it'll get the headlines, and more people are going to ask questions. What is carbon monoxide? What is low-level carbon monoxide? How can it affect people? I think that a first step would be to get this law passed. And then I think all heck's going to break loose as far as education goes.
I appreciate that. Someone is asking for Chuck's website, so we'll make sure to put that in the email that goes out. And I just want to thank everyone for your time and attention. This has been an amazing conversation. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you to our friends at Kidde for making this possible. Any closing remarks, Chuck or Matt?
From me, I would just say, ultimately, you're responsible for your health. Be proactive. Don't be reactive when it comes to carbon monoxide. You must be proactive. Learn about it. Teach your kids. Spread the word. Anybody that you can tell, talk about it with them. Spread the word.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. It's really about understanding what's going on, making sure you're protected, and really just I want to thank both of you for partnering with us on this to help continue to educate as best we can. One final ask is that everyone takes a survey here at the end of the webinar, just to give us feedback.
Yeah, so the survey is going to pop up automatically when you exit. If you could just take a moment to answer a couple of questions, that would really help us. Thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Sharon. You too.